credit, amongst other things. It also covers the foundations of real estate as well. It's going to be an interesting lesson tonight, so be ready to learn and engage. Class is scheduled to end at 8 p.m., but tonight's lesson isn't as content heavy as previous weeks, so it'll probably end much earlier. We are going to dive into the importance of location. A lot of real estate agents out there really stresses on the importance of location, hence the most popular quote, location, location, location. Proximity to schools, transportation, and amenities can significantly affect a property's value and future resale potential. We're going to take a deeper dive into understanding market conditions. Real estate markets can be categorized as buyer or seller markets. Understanding supply, demand, and economic factors, such as interest rates, is essential for making informed decisions. Right now, in our current climate, interest rates for 30-year fixed mortgages and 15-year fixed mortgages is just ridiculously high compared to what they were before the pandemic in 2020. That can deter a lot of people from buying, selling, or from buying a home right now, which can make it more of a seller's market. It's important to be more informed of those kinds of things before one pulls the trigger and decides to buy a home. We're going to take a deeper dive into the home buying process. Buying a home involves several steps: determining your budget, securing financing, making an offer, and completing inspections and closing procedures. Understanding this process helps ensure a smoother transaction. We're also going to take a deep dive into the home selling process as well. Selling a home involves preparing the property for sale, setting a competitive price, making sure you don't get hustled, but making sure you get what you deserve for your home, marketing the home, and negotiating offers. Timing the sale with market conditions is very crucial. Then we're going to take an even deeper dive into real estate, such as refinancing, property taxes, the importance of paying property taxes, current use, and homestead exemptions, two different methods on how one can lower your property taxes or potentially eliminate paying property taxes. I work for the property tax division, so tonight we're going to dive a little bit more deeper into what qualifications one needs to make, what income thresholds one needs to meet in order to be eligible for a homestead exemption for both state and county. We're also going to cover foreclosures. This process occurs when a homeowner fails to make mortgage payments and the lender takes back the property. Understanding how to avoid or handle foreclosing is key to protecting your home. And without further ado, let's engage with real estate essentials. What is real estate? Well, real estate refers to property consisting of land and any permanent structures attached to it, such as buildings or homes. It can include both residential and commercial properties, as well as undeveloped land. What are the different kinds of real estate? Real estate is classified into different categories based on its use, including residential real estate, which are properties designed for living, such as mobile homes, houses, apartments, and condominiums. We can also throw in tiny homes and barndominiums. Now, a barndominium is an actual barn that is converted into a home. And tiny homes, I'm pretty sure a lot of people know about that. That's a current trend right now. Tiny homes, they are smaller size brick and mortar homes, but they're all the rage right now because they're a lot more affordable to build than traditional brick and mortar 1,800 square feet plus 1,600 square feet plus homes. And as for barndominiums, if I go more into depth with it, what makes barndominiums so popular is that they're also cost-effective structures as well. They may not, people may not be able to build them in city limits. You can build them more on a rural. But what makes them popular, not besides the fact that they are cost-effective, but because you have a lot of space. You have a lot of space in a barn. So if you convert it into an actual home, and they're very beautiful as a property tax analyst, I go and inspect a lot of different homes. It's just amazing how they convert actual barns to homes with steel structures on the outside or actual wooden structures with, or it could be brick at the bottom around it to make it more sturdy in case bad weather hits. They're just two new trends going on right now, if anyone's interested in that. But I digress. Going into commercial real estate, properties, which are properties used for business purposes, such as office buildings, retail spaces, and hotels. Then there's industrial real estate, properties used for industrial activities like manufacturing, storage, and distribution. And then there's land itself, which includes vacant land, farms, and ranches, where no permanent structures are present. So, what is the role of real estate in the economy? Real estate plays a critical role in the economy, impacting several key areas. Let's see if I have it here. Okay. One of those areas is economic growth and GDP contribution. Real estate is a significant driver of economic activity and contributes to the gross domestic product, GDP, through various sectors like construction, real estate services, and related industries like home improvement and furnishing. The buying, selling, and leasing of properties generate revenue, and construction activity boosts job creation. So going back to that whole understanding market conditions, if the unemployment rate is going up, that's kind of a bad sign to buy a home right now because if unemployment rate is going up to 6, 7, 8%, people are losing their jobs. And if people's losing their jobs, then the economy is going to suffer because people may be struggling paying for their mortgages, or they just won't even be thinking about buying a home right now. Not to mention they may not even be able to pay rent if they're renting out, which will affect the economy. So looking at things like that, where the unemployment rate is, may be a good telltale sign as to whether it is a good time for me to buy a home or sell my home. If unemployment rate is high, it may not be a good time for me to sell my home because people may not be able to uh, get that price because they may not have a job. Same with interest rates. If
Can I
interest
ask you
rates
a
is high,
question?
yes, what you got?
Yes, you saying about the different rates. Back here, a lot of people lost their house because of that balloon rate.
Mhm.
Is that still going on now or what?
The last time I checked, the federal interest rate is starting to fall, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing for the economy, for the stock market, because usually when the federal interest rates fall, stocks perform better. But the bad side is if the federal interest rate falling, that means more people can borrow cheaper. And if more people can borrow cheaper, then that can potentially increase the rates of homes, the mortgage market. Because the mortgage market and the stock market, they move differently. So if interest rates fall, like the banks and stuff, and it's easier for people to borrow money, well, then that's going to boost demand, and which will potentially boost interest rates as well, which will make it more of a seller's market because people be more willing to buy their homes. But that whole balloon payment will be bad because people might be paying for a much higher interest rate for homes, and that's just not desirable. That's just not desirable.
Okay,
So to
thank you.
answer your question, yes, it is still going on right now, fortunately.
Yeah.
I hope it calms down soon, though. Um, I fear when times like this going on and home prices keep climbing up and climbing up, we could have like another housing bubble crisis because usually these are the conditions that have a housing bubble burst. Because right now homes are ridiculously overvalued right now. Like one of the things I do, in the property tax division, we analyze home prices, and they just keep climbing. As the interest rates was high previously, home prices actually starting to fall down a bit, as well as the interest rates for the mortgages, 15-year and 30-year. But since the interest rates for the banks, the federal interest rate is starting to fall, it's expected for that the 15 and 30-year fixed interest rates to tick up more, and that could potentially boost up home prices, which would be
I got
bad for, yeah, yeah,
okay. One other question. Uh,
yes.
uh, different campaigns were ran for the presidency. Um, Vice President Harris say that it will make it affordable for anybody first time home buyers, and so it depends on the administration. Would that be a determining factor with the new administration coming in toward buying homes and stuff? And we rely
Yes,
on this.
short answer, yes, it does play a significant factor. It does play a significant factor, especially if let's say one candidate just really kind of have a tendency of manipulating the stock market in a way by words, because words can influence the stock market and it can also influence the mortgage market as well as whoever candidate it is. Whatever legislative agenda they may have can also impact the stock market and the mortgage market as well. So it plays a part. It plays a part.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Good question. Very good question. So yeah, it's very important to focus on those different market conditions, such as GDP and unemployment rate, and what a candidate's agenda is. Like, what is their legislative agenda is, because it all plays a part into how the markets will react. The importance of location. There are a lot of different factors to location. Is it desirable? Is it not desirable? And it impacts many different ways. It's got a lot of these different variables here. Are you near a wasteland? Are you near a place where garbage trucks go in and dump their garbage? Are you near an airport? Are you near a school? Are you near the projects? I mean, lots of these different areas, lots of these different aspects affect location, thus affects your home prices. So let's start with property value and appreciation. A property in a desirable location near, such as near city centers, good schools, or natural attractions, typically command higher prices and appreciates faster over time. As demand for such locations increase, so does the value of the properties around it. Now, the supply and demand, locations with limited space for new development, like in coastal cities, and you got the whole global warming argument, like, over time, the sea levels will rise. That's less land we'll have. So less land we'll have, the less places we can actually build new properties. And we can't make more land. So that's reducing the overall supply we have, which will eventually, inevitably increase the home prices, especially in those waterfront areas or near beaches or anything like that. So global warming plays a part in that. Global warming plays a part in real estate. Locations with limited space for new development, such as coastal cities, often see property prices rise because of the supply of homes is constrained while demand remains high. And of course, a lot of people love to live near the water too. So that's another reason why demand is high and those prices near the waterfronts is ridiculously high. Access to amenities, convenience,
Excuse me.
proximity to. We got a question?
I got another question. You
Yes.
say waterfront property. Well,
Mhm.
right now it's hard to get insurance for it. You think
Mhm.
that will reduce the price some because it's hard to obtain insurance, so but it's still going to be high.
Yeah, I don't see it going down in the foreseeable future, especially with those past two hurricanes that just hit Florida. Actually, a lot of insurance agencies are getting away of that. They don't want that risk at all, and which is kind of troubling for people who desire waterfront properties because it'd be really hard to get insured for them because of the risk. That's something people who are interested in those properties have to take into consideration.
Okay, thanks again.
Hmm. The convenience factor. Like let's say going to New York City, everything's around you. You got all the skyscrapers and everything you want, all in one location, which is great. But the property values of those structures is ridiculously high because of the convenience, access to amenities, locations that offer lifestyle benefits such as proximity parks, cultural institutions or entertainment districts tend to be highly sought after. Then we have safety and crime rates. Naturally, people like to live in more safer areas than unsafe areas, and that affects property value. Safe neighborhoods with low crime rates are more desirable and have higher property values. Buyers prioritize safety when choosing where to live, making it a key factor in real estate decisions. Then we have school districts. Quality of education, that's very important. People will move. This happens very commonly. People will move and make sure that their families and their kids are districted in a good district, a good school district where they'll have good quality education, which will affect the property values of the homes around it. Families prioritize access to high-performing school districts. Homes located in top-tier school districts generally sell faster and at a premium, making the school district a major driver of demand. Then we have employment opportunities. People would naturally move to places where they have greater chances of employment. Proximity to major employment centers, such as corporate hubs or industries, increases a location's appeal. People prefer living close to work to reduce commute times, which can make properties in urban or suburban areas near businesses more valuable. And future development. Locations undergoing infrastructure improvements, such as new highways, interstates, public transportation projects, or commercial developments, often see property values increase. Investing in a growing area can lead to significant appreciation in your value. If one interested in acquiring land and one may know that they're planning on a big development project, like Huntsville, for instance. I didn't grow up down here in Alabama, but a lot of people tell me up there in Huntsville 10 years, 20 years ago did not look the same as it does now. Some people may not even recognize it as you even in Alabama. So whoever had acquired properties and land up there in Huntsville 10, 20 years ago, that will have significantly increased in value because of all the different developments that have occurred since then. And then you have zoning and land use. Future land use and zoning regulations in a location can influence property values. For example, commercial development nearby can either raise property values or lower them due to noise and traffic. Understanding market conditions. So we got a lot of different terms for understanding market conditions besides some of the different economic indicators that was discussed previously, such as interest rates or gross domestic product. We have terms called a buyer's market, a seller's market, a balanced market, and we'll go more into detail with the economic indicators. So what is a buyer's market? A buyer's market occurs when there are more homes for sale than there are buyers, resulting in downward pressure on prices. This gives buyers the advantage as they have more negotiating power and more options to choose from. Characteristics of a buyer's market includes lower home prices due to surplus inventory, which can have a lot of factors that can result in that, like high unemployment rate, high interest rates, etc. Buyers can negotiate for price reductions, concessions, and repairs because the one who's trying to sell the home really wants to sell the home. They might be in a position where it's like, I'll just take anything. Then we have the opposite, seller's market. A seller's market occurs when there are more buyers than available homes, driving up prices due to increased demand. In this situation, sellers have more negotiating power. Characteristics of a seller's market includes higher home prices due to strong demand and limited supply. Homes tend to sell quickly. Buyers may face bidding wars and are often willing to offer above the asking price to secure a home. Now, it kind of was a buyer's market when interest rates were high. It kind of was. There was a lot of supply for homes out there. So it kind of was a buyer's market. So anyone who was having a little issue selling a home, it was because it was a buyer's market. But now that the federal interest rates are starting to fall, it's starting to turn into a seller's market slightly. So people who is trying to sell a home now will have more luck in doing so. Then we have a balanced market. A balanced market exists when the supply of homes is roughly equal to the demand. In this scenario, neither the buyer nor the seller has a distinct advantage. Characteristics include stable home prices with gradual increases. Homes generally spend a reasonable amount of time on the market before selling. Negotiations between buyers and sellers are often fair and based on fair market value. Then we have the economic indicators, as I discussed earlier. Interest rates, employment rates, and economic growth impacts buyer affordability and market demand. Monitoring these can help anticipate shifts between a buyer's and a seller's market. Since unemployment rate is healthy right now, I think last time I checked it was around 4.2, 4.1, and interest rates are starting to fall, it's starting to lean more towards a buyer's market. Inflation is also coming down too, so that helps as well. But if anyone's ever curious as to whether you're in a buyer's market or a seller's market, just do a little quick Google. What's the current unemployment rate right now? Anything below 4 or around it to a 4 is good. Anything above 5 is cautious. Anything 6 or above, very bad. Interest rates supposed to be hovering around 2%, 3% traditionally. If it goes down to 0, that's ideal. But if something is going on with the economy, and as a response is going down to 0, one may have to take heed as to why interest rates just drop down to 0. Like COVID, for example. Before COVID, interest rates was around 2.5%. But then COVID happened, interest rates fell to 0. But since interest rates fell to 0, unemployment rate just shot up because a lot of people couldn't work. Or if they could work, they had to work from home. And that's why home prices was bottoming out. Because when all that was going on, it wasn't the ideal time to buy a home. So all the people that was really wanting to sell a home, it was in a position that they had to really lower their price. So one just had to really look at those things: interest rates, unemployment rate, inflation, and even GDP. But mostly just those three things: interest rates, unemployment rate, and inflation, to determine where you're in a buyer's market or in a seller's market. The home buying process. There's a lot of things to consider when you're buying a home. Like here are the steps one needs to consider when doing so. Research and preparation, finding a home that meets your needs and a location that you desire or willing to compromise on, making an offer, a fair one, making sure it's inspected and appraised, and closing the deal, and certain steps after purchasing the home. And we're going to go over each and every single one of these steps in detail. Research and preparation. One needs to assess their financial readiness. Review your credit score, savings, and current financial situation. Determine how much you can afford and secure mortgage pre-approval, which you can do so via credit unions or banks. Set priorities. Make a list of your home preferences, including size, square footage, location, and must-have features, especially if you have a family. Decide between options like new construction, resale homes, manufactured homes, condos, tiny homes, condominiums, so on and so forth. And research the market. Get to know the real estate market in your preferred area. Reach out to real estate agents because they have a whole lot of good knowledge about it, as well as your local mapping and appraisal departments, which are in courthouses where your county seat is in. So in Escambia County, your county seat is Bruton. So go to the mapping and appraisal department in Bruton's courthouse or any real estate agents around there if you're there. And they have good knowledge on good areas to live in. Finding a home. Work with a real estate agent. A knowledgeable agent can guide you through the process, helps you find listings that match your criteria and represent your interests, and then view the homes. Visit properties that meet your needs. Take your time to compare features, prices, and conditions of the home. And refine your search. Narrow down your choices based on inspections, neighborhood preferences, and potential resale value. Once you do that, then it's time to make an offer. Determine the offer price based on your budget, market conditions, and the condition of the home. If it is a buyer's market, then the odds are in your favor. If it's in a seller's market, then you might need to reconsider your offer. Negotiate terms. The seller may counter your offer, leading to negotiations over the price, contingencies, and closing costs. Then once that's done, then you sign a purchase agreement. Once the offer is accepted, both parties sign a contract that outlines the price, conditions, and closing timeline. Home inspection and appraisal. Hire a professional inspector to check for structural issues, plumbing, electrical problems, and more. Based on the findings, and then it's good if you hire a home inspector on your own, like a third party, instead of one that may be part of the deal with whoever it is you're selling to or buying to or the real estate agent. It'd be good to just hire your own home inspector. And then based off of that findings, just to eliminate any shadiness that can occur, then be like, okay, well, the home inspector found these problems. Now you got a leg in negotiations and it can make a lower offer. Or you have appraisal. Well, and you have appraisal. Your lender will require an appraisal to ensure the home is worth the purchase price. If the appraisal comes in lower, you may need to renegotiate. If it comes in higher, you get the idea. Those are good tactics to use when negotiating a price. Because if someone is offering a ridiculous amount of money, and then you get an appraiser to appraise your home, but it doesn't even come remotely close to that, it doesn't justify why that person is offering all that money for the home. It may be emotionally attached to it, but that home will never sell if it doesn't come close to fair market value. Then you close the deal. You review closing documents. Carefully review all the closing documents, including the loan agreement, title, and final purchase details. You pay closing costs. Expect to pay additional costs on top of the final costs, which are called closing costs, which are in attorney fees, loan fees, and property taxes at closing. Then you sign the final paperwork. Once all paperwork is signed and payments are made, the property ownership is transferred to you. Then the after fact, post purchase, you move in. That's the fun part, right? You move in. But once you move in, you might find some issues, some things somewhere that's like, oh, I didn't know all this was here after having the home inspector and the appraiser. So you gotta budget, moving into the home after. It's like, okay, well, there might be some things here that may not have been discovered. So, which 9 times out of 10, which is the case. Or you may not like the colors of the paint in the wall. And it's like, well, these colors are ugly. Like, I need to repaint this. So you gotta make a budget for when you actually move in. And then you also gotta make a budget for maintaining the home. You gotta regularly maintain your home to preserve its value. A good rule of thumb, well, what financial advisors advise me on, is that 1 to 3% of the total value of your home should be kept in that should be your goal to keep as a home maintenance fund because things will break. That's just how it is. Things will break. And if it's your home, it's your responsibility. The whole difference of renting versus owning. If you're renting, you don't have to worry about that stuff. But if you're owning, the responsibility falls on you. So it's very important to have a budget, at least 1 to 3% of your home value every year for home maintenance. And then you review homeowners insurance. Ensure your policy is up to date and adequately covers your home and belongings. Budgeting and financing for home buying. Well, we pretty much covered all this. I'm going to omit that and go into types of mortgages, which is very important for first-time home buyers. a lot of different kinds of mortgages out there beyond just fixed rate mortgages, which are interest rates that remain the same no matter what happens. Even if interest rates just go ridiculously crazy, 10%, 12% interest rate, it stays the same for the rest of the life of the loan. A lot of people take 15 or 30 years. On average, people will take 30 years and then pay up on it more, and then it usually won't take 30 years to pay it up. There's lots of different ways to go about it. But then we also have adjustable rate mortgages, which are called ARMs. Now, ARMs, for a certain period of time, their interest rates are what they call variable. They adjust. Let's say, for instance, Billy Bob wants to get a home now. Interest rates right now is like at around, let's say, 4.5%, which is, well, that is interest rates based off the stock market. No, excuse me, based off the banks. But let's 15-year and 30-year mortgage interest rates, because that's a whole completely different thing that one will need to consider when buying a home, because that's the contract that you'll be basing off of, is the 30-year and 15-year interest rate, which I think right now is around 6 to 7%, which is ridiculously high. That's either for a 15-year or a 30-year mortgage rate. And don't hold me on that, because they keep constantly changing all the time. The last time I checked is around 6 to 7%. So instead of being locked in at that ridiculously high interest rate of 6 or 7%, you can get an ARM. And an ARM, as time goes by and interest rates are projected to fall, the ARM will follow the current interest rates. And then after a certain period of time, it locks in. So if you know, or if you was advised that interest rates for the mortgages, 15 and 30 year, will go down, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you have to stick to that interest rate for 15, 30 years. You want to take advantage of the ARM and let it go down and lock in. So if it goes down to like around 3%, it locks in. So regardless of what happens, if it goes back up to 7, 10, 15%, you will lock in at 3%, that 3%. That's the beautiful thing about ARM. There are also other things than fixed rate mortgages. You don't have to stay locked in for the rest of the next 15 to 30 years. Then you have what they call FHA loans. FHA loans stand for the Federal Housing Administration. For first-time home buyers, with those who are working on building their credit, these are the type of loans that one should shoot for. They're best for first-time home buyers or those with less than perfect credit. And it allows for lower down payments, as low as 3.5%, and are more lenient. They are more lenient credit requirements. A lot of people probably saying get a 20% down payment. And yeah, 20% down payment is good, but right now in this economy, that's probably a lot of people will not ever be able to do that. So you got to shoot for loans where I don't have to put that much money down. Like I could just put 1% or 3% or 5% max. So that's when the FHA loan comes in. Then for those who serve the VA, you have VA loans, which are guaranteed by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs and offers benefits such as no down payment at all and no private mortgage insurance. Now, private mortgage insurance, if you put down a down payment that's less than 20%, you gotta insure the lender that I can pay this home. That's called private mortgage insurance. It's just an additional fee you have to pay every month until you reach up to that 20% mark. Until you own 20% equity of your home, then you don't have to pay that private mortgage insurance. But that's very manageable for those who are interested in pursuing that option of acquiring a home with less than the 20% down payment, which in all honesty, most of America right now is in that situation. Then you have USDA loans, which is the U.S. Department of Agriculture. These loans are offered by them for homes in eligible rural areas. They require no down payment and offer low interest rates because they're in rural areas. That's why. They're good for low to moderate income buyers looking for homes in rural areas. So if anyone's interested in pursuing a home in a rural area, you might want to consider USDA loans. If anyone interested in loans for people who are building their credit and want to get a lower down payment, looks like around 3.5% for a home, look into FHA loans. Anyone who served in the military, pursue VA loans, and so on and so forth. There are so many different options out there. And I didn't mention this, I didn't include this in here, but there's also a thing called reverse mortgages for those who are 2 years old or older who may not have heirs or who may not be willing to give their property to their heirs or who is in a position where their heirs may have passed away before them and they need to take care of themselves. You have a reverse mortgage, 62 years old or older, which allows them to convert home equity into cash without selling their home. The loan is then repaid when the homeowner moves, or you are responsible to repay if the homeowner moves from their home or passes away. Um, I pray that no one's in that situation where your heirs pass away before you. But if you're in that situation, one may consider reverse mortgages. Then we have aiding first-time home buyers. A lot of different things out there aiding first-time home buyers. In addition to the Federal Housing Administration loans, the FHA loans for short, which are government-backed loans. So we pretty much already discussed that one. We have tax credits and incentives. So I'll go to this. We have a credit out there that's still there called a first-time home buyer tax credit. You actually can have a tax credit off of your taxes when buying a home. One might want to look into that more if someone's pursuing buying a home at this time. Make sure that credit is still there, but I believe it is. And it can provide financial relief. There's also something called a mortgage credit certificate, MCCs for short. They also offer tax credits for first-time homebuyers. These credits reduce the amount of federal income tax you owe, improving your affordability. There are many different down payment assistance programs, vary by the states and local governments, of course. And there's home buyer education courses that would teach prospective home buyers about the purchasing process. There are flexible underwriting. Flexible underwriting guidelines allow lenders to offer mortgages to buyers with less conventional financial histories. This might include allowing lower credit scores or considering non-traditional income sources instead of using your credit. There's just a lot of different options. If anyone wants access to this guide, you can just email me anytime. But for sake of time, I'll have to move on to, we already touched PMI. For those who is making a down payment of less than 20%, it'll trigger having to pay private mortgage insurance. But that's really manageable. It may be an extra $100 to pay on top of the mortgage. But if one is really considering buying a home and they put themselves in a situation where, okay, we may not be able to secure 20%, but we can secure 3%, then just plan for that. Plan for paying private mortgage insurance as well. Finding the right home. The process of finding the perfect home requires careful planning, prioritization, and research. You have to define your needs and wants. Needs start by identifying your essential requirements, This includes factors like the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, proximity to work or school, and accessibility to public transportation. Then, once you got your needs out the way, you focus on your wants. You gotta list your preferences or your nice to haves. This might include amenities, such as having a large backyard, modern kitchen, or a garage. Then you need to set a budget, make sure it's within your needs. You don't want to live above your needs. Then you want to choose the right location. Then you want to work with a real estate agent that's helping you. That's for your best interest, not for their best interest. Like I just want this commission because they earn a commission off of every home they sell. You just want to make sure that they're working for you, not for themselves. Then you want to tour your homes. You want to actually be able to go to the homes and see what it looks like. Take notes and pictures. You can take pictures when you're touring homes. And then you want to evaluate the property, assess the condition, make sure, nothing's leaking, make sure there's no cracks in the foundation, mold, outdated wiring, leaky roofs. If you see anything, be mindful of any potential for repair costs. They're gonna try to hide it. You might want to put the couch, and drag the couch and push it where some damages are. You just gotta, look around. Might want to move that couch a bit. You want to check under the painting, make sure there's no cracks under there, and make sure everything is good to go. Then once everything is to your liking, then you make a decision. You weigh the pros and cons. Once you narrow down your options, compare your homes based on your needs, wants, budgets, and long-term. Now we talked about the home buying process. Now we're going to talk about the home selling process. We have a list of steps, just like before. And the first step is preparation and evaluation. Before listing your home, take steps to enhance its appeal. This may include decluttering, cleaning, making necessary repairs. I can't stress that enough for those who want to sell their home. Make the repairs. Because if you don't make the repairs and they see that they see those repairs are there, then they have a leg to stand on in negotiation. Painting and staging. First impressions are crucial in real estate. Then you want to determine a home value. You got to get a professional appraisal or ask your real estate agent to perform a comparative market analysis. That's the technical term. In other words, it's like, well, what's the price of other homes? Like just like mine. Well, what are they selling for? That's what comparative market analysis. This will give you a realistic idea of your home's value based on recent sales of similar properties in your area. Then you list the home. Hire a real estate agent. You don't want to do this yourself. Hire one. An agent can help you navigate the selling process, manage paperwork, and provide pricing and negotiation guidance. They'll list your home on what they call MLSs, which stands for multiple listing service. That's like that is how they actually go about advertising homes. Like only a real estate agent have access to this, or who's close to real estate agents, they might be able to use their credentials again. But anyway, it's like that's the system that they use to advertise. Then you set a competitive price. Based on your home's valuation, set a price that's competitive yet reflects the true value of the property. Overpricing can lead to a longer time on the market, while underpricing may result in leaving money on the table. You don't want to get hustled. Want to do their homework. You got to market the property, get a professional photographer, and have virtual tours. High quality photos and videos or 360-degree virtual tours or panoramas can significantly increase your property's online visibility. This gives potential buyers a comprehensive view of the home. Then there is online and offline marketing. Utilize online platforms like Zillow, Realtor.com, or social media even to reach a wider audience. Offline, consider traditional marketing tools like open houses, yard signs, or brochures. Then you stage. Properly staged homes often sell faster and at higher prices because they can actually go in there and see what's going on. Staging showcases the home's best features and helps buyers imagine themselves living in the space. One of the best ways to sell is have the person go in there and let them imagine what it's like in there. Like, can I see my family here? Can I see myself here? Can I see myself growing old here? Then there's receiving and negotiating offers. Reviewing offers. Once you receive offers, your agent will help you review them. considering not just the price, but also contingencies, financing terms, and closing timelines. Then you negotiate, and do not be afraid to negotiate. And then if everything is to your liking, you accept the offer, and then you close the sale. And then after the sale, you want to do your home inspection and appraising, and then you do your final walkthrough and signing. You just crossing your T's and dotting your I's at that point. And when you prepare your home for sale, just make sure everything is spick and span and ready to go. We already talked about making, pricing strategy, just checking to see what your neighbors' prices are, like what values, how much their homes are worth, if they're identical to your home, if they have the same number of bedrooms and bathrooms, if they have a pool, if they don't have a pool, you want to look at that if you want to sell your home. So you're not selling yourself short, but you might be able to get more money on the table. One good way to do that is by going to the whole mapping and appraisal department. They do appraisals, the same place that people paying their property taxes to. So it'd be good to go down there and see how much it's worth. And that would be a good way to, like, if anyone's interested in selling land or selling their homes, you go down there and see what the county appraises at. It saves someone a lot of money instead of getting a professional appraiser to do it themselves. Just get the local county that's already doing it for free and use their values. It's a lot simpler that way. Okay, let's see here. Oh, I skipped something really important. I'm just going to discuss it here. When you sell a home or when you sell anything, hmm, I gotta put this. Try to avoid using a round number. If you use a round number, it makes it sound like it's more expensive than what it actually is. Like, let's say a home is $300,000. Well, $300,000, that sounds very expensive. But if you put $292,500, that's like, oh, well, I might, okay, well, it's not $300,000. It's just like, if for people who's interested in selling homes or selling anything, rounded numbers makes things sound more expensive than not using rounded numbers. Or it could be like, well, 299,900 instead of 300,000. It's just it plays something in your mind. It's just something about rounded numbers that just gets people be like, I don't know if I want this. So that's a good selling strategy. And for those who are interested in selling, the spring and the early summer are the best times to list a home because usually that's when buyer demand is higher. I just want to touch on those things before moving on. So we got refinancing here. Refinancing a mortgage involves replacing your existing home loan with a new one, typically to secure a lower interest rate or change the loan term. For those who are in a fixed interest rate, locked in at a ridiculously high interest rate for a crazy amount of years, you can refinance. You can refinance when the interest rates fall down, and you can also change the structure of your loan. It could be okay. Well, let's say I'm at 25 years to go. Interest rates are no longer at 7%; they may be at 3 now. Um, I want to refinance. Like it's time to refinance. I want to be able to. It may take me a little bit longer to pay, or it may not. It's just a good tool to have when you want to assess the current market conditions. And if the mortgage interest rates of 15-year and 30 years fall down to a much lower interest rate than what your contract is currently set at, refinance, especially if you have a fixed mortgage. Okay, now we're moving on to different techniques one can do to lower your property taxes. Um, this is just my little area expertise, property tax analyst over here. One of those things you can do is called current use. For those who own 5 acres of land or more. Um, and it's kind of unfair how to do it. This current use process, one goes down to the courthouse every year. You file this form. You file the form. And it shaves a lot of money off. Like people who have 20 acres of land or 50 acres of land can go down to the courthouse, file this current use form, and they may potentially pay the same amount of taxes as someone who owns 5 acres or 4 acres of land. Because, how can I say this? Because like the more it comes down to the use of the land. It comes down to the use of the land. Like the more acres someone has, they could potentially use that land for agricultural purposes or anything like that. So to offset the cost of their agricultural production or their investments, then they can go down there and file a current use form. Or if you own 5 acres of land, 5 is the max for this. You can go down there and file a current use form, and then that can significantly lower your taxes off of that alone for the land. Then you have your homestead exemptions. Okay, now with homestead exemptions, I'm going to take everyone to our website. See if I have it. All right. So we have these wonderful things called homestead exemptions, which can reduce a person's property tax, even for mobile homes. Even for mobile homes that are in trailer parks of land that one may not own, but they may own the mobile home. The mobile home may still be eligible for the homestead exemption. Tiny homes, barndominiums, doesn't matter. As long as it is your primary residence, you're qualified for it. So a homestead, and here is the property tax section of the Alabama Department of Revenue's website. A homestead is defined as a single-family owner-occupied dwelling and the land thereto, not exceeding 160 acres. That's a lot of acres, 160. The property owner may be entitled to a homestead exemption if he or she owns a single-family residence and occupies it as their primary residence. Now, if you have a commercial property, is not included, is only for where you live at. So here's the homestead exemption for the state. If you're under the age of 65 and the assessed value, not the market value, but the assessed value of your home is not more than $4,000, and you don't own more than 160 acres, which is most people, then there's no income limitation. That's from the state side. Now, with this tax discount, with this property tax discount, you have the state discount and you have the county discount. If you're eligible for both discounts, then you may potentially don't have to pay property taxes at all. If you are over the age of 65, there's no maximum amount for your assessed value. And if you own less than 160 acres, you're eligible for a state homestead exemption. Permanent and total disability, you're eligible. Blind regardless of age, you're eligible. Now here's the county, because the bulk of the property taxes goes to the county. Since property taxes are assessed at the local county level, the county gets most of the money. So here's where you really want to look at. If you're not 65 or older, and the assessed value of your home is not more than $2,000, then there is no income limitation. You'll be eligible for some. you'll be eligible for some. It's not a complete exemption. You're still gonna have to pay property taxes. You would have to pay property taxes, it looks like, if you're either over the age of 65, and your assessed value of your home is not more than $2,000. Now, to calculate the assessed value, just a rough calculation. Um, okay, let's say a home is worth $150,000, and you take 10% off of that. So $150,000, 10% off of that is $15. So it looks like you might still have to pay property taxes, but it's a discount. And there's an income limitation for those over the age of 65. Adjusted gross income of 12,000 or more. So you make less than 12,000 and you fall under that threshold. And my calculation's rough, could be wrong. But as long as your assessed value is not more than 2,000, and some may grant higher depending on what county you're in, you don't have to pay any. And if you're 65 or older, oh, that's interesting. They must have changed that on me. If it's not more than $5, they both the same here. I wonder why they did that. Hmm. Long story short, if you're older the age of 65, you may be eligible for a complete exemption as long as you're not making more than $12,000. There might be some clauses as to why there are assessed value limitations here. Because from my understanding, if you're older than the age of 65, you may not have to pay property taxes at all. So might want to reach out to the courthouse that you're in if you fall under that threshold, or if you're permanent and total disability. And if you fall under that threshold, you might be able to prove that with a social security letter or through a physician's affidavit. You can get your doctor to sign off for this. You can get this form in the Alabama Department of Revenue website, and then you can take that down there. And then you fall under that threshold, income threshold, then you might not have to pay taxes at all. Not sure why the website have these clauses, though. I gotta look into that a little bit more. But the counties, that is where you really want to be careful with, because that is where most of the money goes. That's where most of the taxes go to. So if you're older than the age of 65, or you're permanent and total disabled, or you're blind, you may be eligible for it. Let's see here. Tax needs last week. Pay property taxes. If you do not pay your property taxes in an effort to get your money back, or in an effort to get the money back that was lost, they auction off your tax debt. And whoever buys the tax debt after 3 years, you have the ability to foreclose on the property. Now, there's another thing that I haven't discussed last time. Foreclosures. I believe I might not have touched it yet. A foreclosure is a legal process in which a lender attempts to recover the balance of a loan from a borrower who has stopped making payments to the lender by forcing the sale of the asset used as the collateral for the loan. You have missed payments and notices, and then if you if if one is unable to make their payments, then there's a redemption period. There's a grace period. They work with you. But if you're not able to help them, like not able to work with them and paying, your payment, then it falls into either judicial foreclosure or non-judicial foreclosure. Now, judicial foreclosure involves filing a lawsuit to obtain a court order to foreclose. This is used when no power of sale is present in the mortgage or deed of trust. But then you have your non-judicial foreclosure conducted without court involvement, based on the power of sale clause in the mortgage that pre-authorized the sale of property to pay off the loan balance in case of default. Most people use non-judicial foreclosure. People don't want to spend all that money. Besides the whole tax lien, the tax debt, if one is unable to pay and they go to the grace period, and unfortunately the home is foreclosed, they do auction it. They auction these properties just like they auction tax debt, and it is a redemption period for 3 years, and then they claim it. This foreclosing process, I believe the sheriff department handle that, and usually it may go to the banks. Banks may acquire foreclosed properties. They usually do, especially if the mortgage is taken out in their name. They will like it if someone else owns it because they don't want to have that liability. Of course, it's kind of risky suing foreclosed homes because you don't know what's going on with it or if there are any liens in it, so on and so forth. But it is another avenue for those who are interested in building a real estate portfolio. I talked about tax liens last week, but this is another avenue. They auction foreclosed properties. They bid on them, and it goes to the highest bidder. The sheriff department is probably the best place to go to if one wants to know more about the auction process for foreclosed homes. And for tax liening investing last year, the mapping and appraisal department will be the best place to contact if anyone interested in getting into that. But this is just another avenue for building a real estate portfolio. And the whole purpose of this is so it can encourage people to acquire these properties so the mortgage companies can get their money back. They don't want to be in a situation where they have to eat the cost of the loan that they issue out to people. They want someone to acquire these properties. That's why they have this auction process. How to avoid or handle foreclosure. You communicate with the lender. If you foresee difficulties in making your mortgage payments, contact your lender immediately. Lenders often prefer to avoid foreclosure due to its high cost and lengthy process. So they may offer alternatives to help you keep your home. And you can request a loan modification as well, which may extend your term, but you can keep your home. Refinancing is an option. They may offer a repayment plan. Um, Short selling. This is kind of a touchy subject to a lot of people, so I really want to be careful how I word things. Before reaching foreclosing, if no other options on the table, you can short sell your home, which your credit will take a hit, but you won't have that foreclosing red ink on your credit report. If keeping the home is not an option, a short sale can prevent foreclosure. This involves selling your home for less than the amount owed on the mortgage with the lender's permission. This is just one of those things where you have to cooperate with the lender because the lender don't want to foreclose because that would be very disadvantageous on the mortgage company. They would prefer if it's worked out. especially if you're in good faith and you're in talks with them. This is the last option to consider before foreclosing itself. This involves selling your home for less than the amount owed on a mortgage with the lender's permission. The lender may forgive the remaining debt, though this could also have tax implications as well, because if debt is forgiven, not only it would potentially affect your credit score poorly, that forgiven balance will be treated as income. That forgiven balance is treated as income. So let's say you have a $150,000 home and you run into some trouble and you can't pay the rest of it, the 120,000, you paid 30,000, but you can't pay the 120,000. And you had good faith with the lender, and then you worked through all the options, and you couldn't do it. But they agreed to do a short sale, which is great because you avoid foreclosing. But that $120,000 of debt that was forgiven will be treated as taxable income for that year. So it'll be like as if you have earned $120,000 and you have lost your home because you will have to sell it because you wasn't able to keep it. So it gets you off of the whole foreclosing thing, but that's a lot of taxes to pay. Like you earn $120,000 on top of the other income you may have earned that year. So if one's considering short selling, or if anyone's in a situation like that, please keep in mind that the balance that is forgiven is treated as actual money you have earned that year. Any questions with that? Okay, we're about done with this. I want to go back to the homestead exemption. That was interesting to me. I wanted to go back to that because I'm kind of curious as to why that it was worded like that for people who are older than the age of 65 and older. If anyone falls into this situation, I mean, it's worth checking into. I'm pretty sure that you may not even have to pay property taxes at all if your adjusted gross income is under $12,000. If it falls under that $12,000 mark, because here it says no maximum amount. Not sure why they'll have two different things here, but I've seen it so many times on the assessment side and property taxes. A lot of people who are older, who will fall in this bracket or has a persistence appetite and they just provide one of those things or a social security letter, and then they fall in the income bracket and then they don't have to pay property taxes. It's just outstanding. I just wish people told me that. I was not sure why the website is a little confusing. How that is, I can see a lot of people can get a little confused if they come to this website. I might have to talk to someone about that. But from personal experience, it is true. If you fall under that income bracket and you fall into those three categories, you are exempt. It's just amazing to me because a lot of people don't know about that, and that also goes for mobile homes as well. A lot of people don't know about that. It really breaks my heart. So that pretty much wraps up Module 7. And next time, we're going to estate planning and how to get a will. We're going to talk about wills, trusts, and estates, living wills. We're going to go into the basics as to what estate planning is. And we also going to talk about ways on how you can get around a will. They call those either transferable on death accounts or payable on death accounts, such as insurance, um, life insurance policies. As long as there is a beneficiary on a life insurance policy, you don't need a will. As long as your name's on the beneficiary, the money will be paid out upon the person's death. Or deeds, for instance. If your name is on a deed, or if a name is on someone, if someone else's name is on a deed, and you want to make sure that your heirs gets your property after, you know, when that time comes, you can make sure that their names is on the deed too. And you can also make sure that there are clauses on the deed, such as joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. That's the legal term. And then they call those a survivorship warranty deeds, or warranty deeds for short. There's other types of ways you can do it, but that is the most surefire way to do it. And the reason why I know that is because I work with different mappers and in different counties, and I see like probably hundreds of deeds a day. So it's like a lot of different kinds of deeds worked by these lawyers and then recorded to the probate office, and then we see them out, and that's how we will be able to tell where how much is there, or how much is worth, or how much is sold for, et cetera, et cetera. But for those in that situation, you just make sure your name is on it. And if your name is on it, and if it's a warranty deed, then it's like, well, you don't really need a will if the deed itself said the home and land and all structures therein. Then it's like, okay, well, the deed surpasses the will. They have to respect the deed and the importance of recording your deeds. Because just because you have a deed and you have fixed the deed to where it's supposed to be, doesn't mean the deed is in effect. You have to record the deed in the probate office. Once the deed is recorded in the probate office and is filed in the probate office, then that is when the deed is in effect. So we're going to talk about all that stuff next week. We're going to talk about powers of attorneys, the different kinds of powers of attorneys, general, durable, medical, so on and so forth next. So with that said, I pass the ball back to Chief Apostle Tate.
Maj, did you have some questions? Do you have a question? Reverend Mike, we did have a question while we
Okay.
come back.
I wanted to know about, I know you had said, something about, a forbearance agreement. So that's like, if you can't make the payments, then you can discuss it with the lender, and then they'll give you like a month or so on, and then let you pay the rest of it in the one.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, like that's the whole good faith, thing. If you work with them, they work with you because they really don't want to be in a situation where they have to eat that cost. They don't want that to happen. They're actually incentivized to work with you. They'll do whatever it is they can to make sure that you'll continue to be able to make those payments, or anyone else is continue to able to make those payments. So that's why there's so many different kinds of things out there, like forbearance agreements and repayment plans and restructuring and refinancing and so on and so forth.
Now, does that work the same as like with forbearance with student loans? Does like if you
Yes.
halt payments, how does that work with the interest stuff? Does it?
Well, federal is probably more forgiving than private loans. Private loans. The reason why is because federal, they under those regulations under the Department of Education. They are more gracious. They actually they have a period of time where they forgive your loans after 20 years of constantly paying them up. Or if you're disabled, then you can go through that route and pay it up. But private loans, it works the same way. It could be a little more challenging to work with them, but they don't want to eat that cost either. So I will say they work the same way with forbearance agreements and refinancing. You can refinance easier with private loans than federal loans, though, because federal loans, they have so many different types of ways on how you can pay your debt than private loans. Private student loans don't really have a lot of those different kinds of options. It's kind of more like a pros and cons kind of thing. One will have to assess what kind of loans they had when financing their education. If it's federal loans, I would say it's easier, but it may not be that many different methods to refinance or have forbearance agreements. But there are grace periods when they're not working. If you're not working, then they will be graceful to you. If you are working, well, then well, you kind of on the hook for it a little bit. They might work with you, but they kind of on the hook for it. But they have that clause where after paying for it for a certain period of time, you're forgiven. Usually it's 20, 25 years, 25 years for grad loans, 20 years for undergrad. Private loans, they probably be more willing to do the whole forbearance thing, but they don't have a lot of different options to repay back, unlike federal loans.
Whole question too as well.
Okay, there we go. I had,
One more question. I know
Okay.
when you were talking about the survivorship deed, so you said the only way it's really valid is if it's by record, even like recorded like on the
Yes.
recorder or.
No, not that kind of recording.
document.
Good question. You have to take it to the probate office. That act is called recording. The probate office have to receive your deed and record it in their system. One of the fascinating things about a probate office, real quick, is it's open to the public. It's open to the public, and you go back in there, and you can see deeds started from the beginning of time in their county. You see deeds that's that has those books where even back in those times of slavery that you have colored and white. You see those kinds of deeds. You see deeds from the beginning of the county origin. And it's fascinating to me because that is recording. That's what they do. Like you see everything. Like you see every single deed, you see every single newspaper, and they record it for history's sake. Because you see every single time a parcel is changed hands with deeds and everything. It's very fascinating to me. It's history. That's the act of recording. They're literally recording your deed for history, for anyone else that want to see it, or for your own records. It's a good question. It's a good question.
Brother, you are
Okay.
most of these deeds online now, where you can see it online, or do you have to actually go physically into the probate office to see it?
That's the catch. You gotta go there. They gotta go there. It's like that. Lawyers kind of exploit that, what they call title research, lawyer research. All they literally do is they just go to the courthouse, the probate office. They open up a couple of books. They find your deed. They just check and see the history of the deed, and then okay, well, is in no one else's name. No one else can take it. They close the book. They put the book back in the closet and they move on. I've seen it done so many times. It's one of those methods how lawyers rip off people. Well, I'm just gonna be as cavalier with it. Like that is true. And you have to go to the courthouse. The whole convenience thing is like, well, I don't want to go to the courthouse to look for deeds. I'd rather pay the lawyer to do it. But it's really actually very easy to do it. Most deeds that's like, let's say 1990, 1980, or later might be in a computer. 1990 probably for sure. Anything else will be in a book. Maybe one of
Okay.
those old books in there. But everything is there in a probate office.
All right. Anyone else? Any other questions?
The reason I had asked that though about like, what can anybody, they can hear me?
Yes, it's
Okay, the
unmuted.
reason I had asked that, but because I've seen instances where people record their will and saying upon like a tape recorder, they play it for the family whenever they, like, I've seen people
Yeah.
do it. That's why I want to know whether or not, if it's by recorded, you mean like, written down or.
No. It's a different kind of recording. But you
Okay.
can still do that though. You can still do that because you never know what can happen to you. And then, traditionally what you can do in that situation, you can arrange the whole thing on the will. We can have it some kind of agreement with your lawyer or someone that you really trust. Be like, in the event that something happens to me, I recorded this will. Can you play my recording? But in order for that recording to have any weight, you have to turn in the deed to the probate office. And if you have a will, you have to do the same thing. You have to turn in the will. It has to be notarized. The will has to be notarized, you have to have witnesses. And then, I always would consider people to go to a lawyer to get a will done, even though a will itself is probably just a bunch of words, stamped by a notary, signed by witnesses, and recorded. Get a lawyer. Get a lawyer because you don't want to have that hanging over you. The same process when one passes away, the executor of your estate goes to the probate office and files your will, and then they begin the proceedings. But then there's a lot of different ways on how you can avoid will entirely, because the whole filing process for a will, filing a will to probate, could be kind of expensive, depending upon the complexity of the will and depending upon how big your estate is. Some state laws may not have such expensive rules, expensive limits or costs for filing a will and probate. If your estate is only a certain amount of money, you might not have to pay anything at all. It requires more research, but next week I want to really dive into all the different ways on how you can avoid doing a will at all. And those methods will work just the same as a will without having to be stressed out of a will. In case you're in a situation where, man, like the people who took care of me didn't leave behind a will, what am I supposed to do? There are other ways you can work through that. Any other questions? That's a very good question.
Thank you. Excellent course.
All right. Well, we just thank the Lord for another wonderful session. Thank you, Brother Matthew, and thank you to everyone that joined in tonight. We had a very good session, and we're just thankful for all the knowledge and information that Brother Matthew has given us again. We can close out in a just a brief word of prayer. Definitely, Father, Lord God, we just thank you. God, we praise you for another session of this personal finance workshop. God, we just thank you for Brother Matthew. God, we thank you for everyone that's gathered tonight. God, we thank you, Lord God, for not just allowing us to gain this information, but help us to share it with somebody else, Lord. God, we thank you for endowing Brother Matthew. God, we ask you to continue to bless him. Lord God, bless all of his endeavors, whatever his hands go to do, God, we thank you that it shall prosper. God, I thank you, Lord God, for not just allowing him to be an instructor, but I thank you that he'll be a financial coach, God, that you'll just give him even more wisdom and knowledge to be able to coach people and to be able to apply this to their lives, God. And we just thank you, God. We give you all the glory, give you all the honor and all the praise. In the mighty, matchless name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
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 Have a blessed night, everyone.
So long.
Shalom.